Hello and welcome to Views on News. I'm Jawad Tehami. Now, the two-part documentary by BBC, which was earlier on air, it has been screened at the National Press Club in Washington. The panelists have urged the US media outlets to hold Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi accountable for his role in the Muslim massacre in Gujarat in 2002. Now, this panel included the representatives of the various media outlets in the US and also included the daughter of a police whistleblower who was there at the time of the Gujarat massacre 2002, and also an other eyewitness who was also in attendance in this particular panel when this particular documentary was screened at the National Press Club in Washington. Earlier we had seen the Indian government led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi had reacted aggressively against this particular documentary by BBC, and it had ordered the YouTube and Twitter to ban the sharing of the clips of this documentary as well. There were detentions of the students in the universities also. And the income tax officials also raided BBC's offices in New Delhi and Mumbai also. The Amnesty International termed these raids as a blatant affront to the free speech. Now, we have also seen that the cases of cow vigilantism have increased and they have become rampant. And every single day we are seeing a new case coming to the fore as a Muslim man was killed by Hindu extremists in the state of Bihar. And now the police chief of the state says that 3 people in connection to that murder have been arrested. Now, at the same time, we have seen also the government is trying to harass the opposition parties, including the Congress as well as the Communist Party of India, Marxist, and they have also raised their voices against the high-handedness of the BJP government. And now this stifling of free speech and discrimination against Muslims and harassment of the opposition parties in India, after all this that is happening in Modi's India, can we really call India true democracy? And to understand that, we are on to have been joined in the studio by Mr. Air Marshal retired Ashfaque. He is Director, Center for Aerospace and Security Studies. Mr. Ashfaque, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. And we are also honored to have been joined in the studio by Dr. Abid Abbasi, is political analyst and assistant professor at NAML. Dr. Abbasi, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. On Skype, we are being joined by Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja. She is the Executive Director, Center for International Strategic Studies. Dr. Asma, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. Let me begin the discussion with you, Mr. Ashfaque. Now, all these happenings in India under the BJP government led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, this panel has urged the US media outlets to expose and hold Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi accountable for his role in the Gujarat massacre. Now, after all this, don't you think Indian fascist policies under the BJP government are being exposed more and more with every single passing day?
Thank you. I think you are right that these are being exposed more and more by the day. But how does it make any difference? The US government is relying on the Indian side. India is part of the two AUKUS. It's their biggest ally against China. So it really doesn't matter if the media actually just exposes BJP. In 2003, the US Congress, the US State Department had declined Narendra Modi's visit to the US, and he could not travel there for almost a decade. But later, when he became a prime minister, so he was most welcome in the US. So just being exposed on the media is not of much effect unless there are certain actions taken by the Western governments, by the UN or by other agencies which have some effect on that. Simply media outrage may not have much effect on India.
Right, Dr. Abbasi, your take regarding this, the fascist policy of Indian government led by BJP and of course the Prime Minister of which is Narendra Modi. Now we are expecting elections in 2024 also. So I mean these fascist policies are being exposed before the world. What do you think should be done regarding that by the major world powers? Because we have seen over the last couple of months, especially after this particular documentary by BBC was on air, we could see that digital hegemonism on the part of Indian authorities also ordering YouTube and Twitter to ban the sharing of these clips also.
Thank you very much, Tehami sir. Yes, very rightly you have pointed out that the way Indian government, particularly the Narendra Modi and his based on RSS ideology, the way they are treating not only the Muslim community, the largest minority in the world, that is considered the largest minority in the world in one country, they are consistently being treating them high-handedness or their brutalities against the Muslim community. But we should keep in mind that this was the same Narendra Modi who is known as quote-unquote a butcher of Gujarat. As Air Marshal Sahab has very rightly said that he was denied the US visa on the request of the International Conference on Religious Protection, a think tank over there, and he remained banned in the United States for about a decade, right from 2004 to 2014 when he became the Prime Minister of India. But unfortunately, the point is that this is not the India of Mr. Gandhi or Mr. Nehru. They were very secular, in their posture. Or the Congress remained in power for about 60 years in India. That is considered the mother party, the creating the modern India, and they have portrayed their posture as the most, biggest democracy in the world, and the values of secularism are being observed by them. This time, Rahul Gandhi is not only an important or significant opposition leader in India, but he is the grandson of Jawaharlal Nehru. He is grandson of Indira Gandhi, the former Prime Minister of India. He chose England because we consider the Westminster democracy initiated by England is the biggest democracy, is the oldest democracy, is the model democracy of the world. He chose that country to highlight the anti-democratic or fascist tendencies of the RSS-based BJP government in India. And I think the Air Marshal Sahab rightly said that this not only the media could play some role, but perhaps media has a very crucial role to play. When the social media is being banned by Narendra Modi, it means that there is something anticipated by the Indian fascist government, that the YouTube and the Twitter is making some difference. Because as you said in your question that elections are heading towards in 2024, or this it's very unfortunate that the world has keep on mum on this very brutal acts of Narendra Modi, not only in Gujarat, but against his own oppositions. The RSS extremist minds are being deployed on various posts in India and various institutions. They are using the brutal act, because RSS has a proven a terrorist organization, I would say. That's a very extremist organization or anti-Muslim history, long time history against the Muslim community living in India.
So, Mr. Ashfaque, now we have seen there are certain statements made by Mr. Rahul Gandhi also. He says that functioning microphones of the opposition leaders in the parliament are often silenced. Also, there had been a very strong reaction from the BJP MP who has said to throw Rahul Gandhi out of the country because he is of not Indian descent. Let me quote her. Pragya Thakur says, "We have assumed," referring to Mr. Gandhi, "as you are not from India because your mother is from Italy," unquote. So, I mean, that clearly shows the racist mindset of the MPs belonging to.
I think you are right. There's a racist mindset, but being in majority, and they are dependent on, BJP is dependent on the Hindu vote bank. And this is how probably they are trying to exploit, and that is how he has gotten 2 terms and probably is looking forward to the 3rd term. So, Rahul Gandhi, like Dr. Sab said, that he has been to UK and that's where he spoke about it. But then exploiting the divisions between the society itself. At the moment, even the courts are not acting as they used to act in India. So, if the courts continue to in the same manner, likelihood is that the democracy in India will have serious implications. But otherwise,
Now you've just raised this issue of the attitude or the behavior or the role and responsibility of the judiciary over there in India. The statement, one of the panelists in that particular screening at the National Press Club in Washington happened to be the daughter of the jailed whistleblower, Mr. Sanjeev Butt. And she says that media and judiciary are subverted from top to bottom and used by the regime to do its dirty work. So, amid this scenario, what do you think happens to be the ideal role and the responsibility of judiciary? Because if injustice is being happening in a certain society, the victim definitely looks up to judiciary. But in this particular case, the judiciary is also being used by the regime for its dirty work.
I think the judiciary has been used by the regime since 2002 Gujarat riots. The first commission which was formed that had a Gujarat High Court judge, and only when there were many people who raised their voices, that's where a retired Supreme Court judge was also appointed in the same commission as the chairman of the commission. Otherwise, it was a one-person commission. After that, whatever the inquiries were held, in all those inquiries, ultimately, the people who were doing the work, they were not even given the responsibility, the chance of working there. I was in India at that time. Incidentally, from 2002 to 2006, I was in India, and I was seeing their newspapers. At that time, they were not being given that permission, and ultimately, all the cases were quashed in the Indian Supreme Court. Again, that happened in 2012. So, if the judiciary does not stand up and does not help, probably this will continue to go on, and the minorities, which could be Dalits, which could be Muslims, which could be Christians, they'll all be persecuted. And yes, the BJP is more violent, sorry, but the Congress has also been persecuting the Muslims in a different way. Maybe when we come to that, so I'll speak about that. So it is, at the moment, the media has been silenced, the social media has been silenced, the opposition is being silenced, and the judiciary or the other state organs, they are again silenced, or they are not taking the right constitutional steps. Similarly, even in the armed forces, there are people with RSS mindset are being given top appointments. So this is how it's happening, and I think this will all help BJP gain the vote bank in the next year's election.
Right. We are honored to have been joined in the sky by Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja, as well, Executive Director, Center for International Strategic Studies. Dr. Asma, thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. Now, the panel at the National Press Club in Washington has urged the US media outlets to hold Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi accountable for his role in the Muslim massacre of Gujarat in 2002. Now, do you think with each single passing day, these fascist policies of the BJP government would keep on getting exposed in front of the world? And do you expect any sort of a substantial or concrete action being taken by the governments of the major powers after such type of things are being exposed against the BJP and its Prime Minister?
See, all these things were in the notice of international community and public, and that is why they were not granting visa to Mr. Modi before he became Prime Minister of India. So now, I think the biggest role is that since 2014, world is witnessing that how India is sliding down on all development index under the rule of Modi, and how that radical fascist regime is risking the strategic stability of South Asia, and how their policy of jingoism or fascism and atrocities and subjugation and all those policies against the rights of indigenous people in different regions of India, all that are causing international peace. And now that regime is becoming a threat for international stability and security. And that is why international community is raising their voice. But unfortunately, as you asked about, any concrete action, that is, I don't see it, but definitely the pressure from international community, international organizations, that would they would raise their voice, and the pressure would be little more intense on the government. And as when our foreign minister stated in international conference, or in a press conference called Mr. Modi Butcher of Gujarat, there was a staunch reaction from Indian media and Indian government. But you see, the BBC documentary substantiated whatever our foreign minister said. So whatever Pakistan was trying to raise the alarm bells and red flags to international community, so that they can realize that what sort of danger the Modi regime poses to not only to Pakistan or the region, but to across the globe. But now, right now, the world leaders, and especially the organizations, they appear to realize that the intensity of danger, and the way or where India is heading is heading to completely leading the destiny. That destiny is definitely the goals of civilized international world.
Right, Dr. Asma, now I'll come back to you with another very important point. Let me go to Dr. Abbasi. Dr. Abbasi, we saw the Home Minister Amit Shah giving a statement that Narendra Modi at that time taught a lesson to those elements who were trying to disrupt peace and bring chaos at that very particular time, which was, of course, criticized by larger segments of the Indian society at that time. So if Amit Shah had confessed that Prime Minister Modi had his role and he sort of taught a lesson to those anti-social elements, so why they're so afraid of screening of this particular documentary?
This is actually the mindset of Hindutva they wanted to establish in India, destroying the secular posture of India, of Gandhi and Nehru, and even to an extent Indira Gandhi. They are actually trying to impose the Hindutva in India. And about as Air Marshal Sahab earlier said, that the role of judiciary is very much, compromised, and I would say this disappointing, because the then Lieutenant General Zamir Shah, who was deployed to prevent those massacre of the Muslims in Gujarat in 2002, he has written his book recently. His book that is actually the confessional statement. He said that his armed forces remain an airport for one night and the whole day over there. The Chief Minister of Gujarat, Narendra Modi, has not provided any logistic support to them that was promised by the government when the government sent that Lieutenant General to Gujarat to prevent those massacre of the Muslims. This shows that book, the name of that book is the Sarkari Musalmans. The Sarkari Musalmans, his book name is. That book shows that it was not by default, but it was by design of Narendra Modi to initiate that massacre. Mr. Zamir Shah, the Lieutenant General, retired from Indian Army, he wrote in his book that it was observed by him and by his forces that police was either behind the the murderers or the killers, or either standing on aside, not doing any duty to prevent the lives of the people. He said that if that logistic support and the vehicles and the mobile phones and all those requirements which were asked by the armed forces at that time to save the lives of the innocent Muslims, they were provided, the situation would have been different. Hundreds of Muslims could be saved. The number, the Indian figures are showing that about 1,000 people were killed. The Muslims were killed, but the number is about 2,000 Muslims they were killed at that time. Secondly, as you said, Amit Shah, the Indian government's minister and the spokesperson, he actually admitted, he confessed that it was Narendra Modi behind that. And secondly, I don't know what was the evidence is being provided to the Indian Supreme Court and the High Court. They acquitted so many people who were involved in that and given clean sheet to Narendra Modi. What about the book written by the person who was practically in the field?
And there is another thing that corroborates this fact that you've just highlighted. Sanjeev Bhatt, a senior Gujarat police official, took part in the meetings after the riots broke out, said that police were ordered by Mr. Modi to do nothing for 3 days until the violence subsided.
Yes.
And then
One,
he was
that
victimized.
confessional
He is
statement
still
and the
remains-
Army General's confessional statement and Amit Shah's confessional statements. What else was required to, to put those people in the court of law and do, some sort of, justice should be given to those innocent people? This is not the joke in the present modern world. Then the India is on one side claiming to be the most secular state in the world, the biggest democracy in the world. On the other hand, the religious minorities are being brutally killed in that way, and not only killed there, but were so ironically and so arrogantly accepted by the Amit Shah, the Indian minister, that yes, we have taught the lesson to those miscreants, quote unquote, by in their language.
Right, Mr. Ashfaque, there is another statement by another eyewitness, Imran Daud, in this particular panel when this documentary was screened at the NPC in Washington. He says the writers carried out targeted attacks on Muslims using the same tactics as in Nazi Germany. I mean, don't you think it makes it even more worrisome, the kind of tactics which are being used?
Yes, it makes it more worrisome. Actually, the Indian government or the official accounts say about 1390 people died. But otherwise, it's more than 2,000 people. The independent analysts and the historians, they all claim that the fire in the train, which actually started the entire, that was either accidental inside or it was intentional by the government, the Hindutva people, because those were the people who were coming back from Ayodhya. The police initially said they were ready to control the riots. The government at that time said, you wait for 3 days, we'll let you know when to act. For 3 days they did not let them act, that is one. Even close to the police training center, there were a lot of people who were killed, raped, etc. Nothing happened. In the Gulberg area, a lot of killings were done. There was even an MNA who, along with his family, was burnt, a Muslim MNA. So I think there's no doubt about that. Even the cases about them were closed, and ultimately the Indian Supreme Court at that point moved the cases to Bombay High Court, where 2,000 cases were reopened. But ultimately, when the BJP got in power, they were able to control the Supreme Court also.
Right. So, Mr. Ashfaque, why makes Indian authorities so frightened about the screening of this documentary? As I have already asked Dr. Abbasi if Amit Shah had confessed that there was a role of Prime Minister, this Chief Minister at that time, of teaching a lesson to those anti-social elements allegedly.
In that way, according to his statement, actually that lesson was the anti-social elements were the Muslims. So there was a lesson taught to them. This is for the domestic public consumption, because they would want the Hindu vote bank to increase. Internationally, they would not want to accept that. That is one, and they would not want the minorities to know the truth, because it's been now almost 21 years. So after 21 years, they would not want that the younger generation should know the facts.
Right. Dr. Asma, now when we talk about the role of judiciary, how do you see the role and responsibility of Indian judiciary? Because the kind of statement we have seen by the daughter of Sanjeev Bhatt that says that the media and judiciary are subverted from top to bottom and used by the regime to do its dirty work. So if there is a victim, he will definitely look up to the judicial system for justice if such sort of injustice is being carried out against a certain community. So, I mean, what happens to the responsibility? Where do you see Indian judiciary's role in this complicity?
See, judiciaries are important in those countries which are democratic in nature. Those countries where there is respect and acknowledgement for democratic rights of general public. Democracy, otherwise in electoral autocracy, judiciary is only a tool in the hands of fascist regime to justify and legitimize their illegitimate inhuman acts. So unfortunately in India right now judiciary is only a tool or a medium in the hands of Modi regime to justify their crimes and to cover up their crimes against humanity. So right now I don't see any vibrant any role of Indian judiciary as an independent institution. And if we see the recent or decisions of Indian judiciary during last several years under Modi regime, none of the decision was marked as the as a just decision, whether it was about the Babri Mask or it was about the Article 370 or 35A or anything for it say Gujarat fire. You were talking about that why Modi regime is afraid of BBC's documentary. I would only like to add that Modi regime is even afraid of Rana Ayub, a female, a girl who is author of Gujarat Files. So anyone who is showing mirror to the BJP regime and who is unleashing or revealing the crimes against humanity conducted under the leadership of Mr. Modi, they are afraid of it. Just like all fascists are against the truth. They are not ready to face the truth. They are not ready to see their face in the mirror. And that is why they want to hide the reality and the truth from the world. And if the case of Gujarat massacre, genocide, I would call it, is so strong, then it can be tried under the law of crimes against humanity. UNO has the right, or other international organization, to formulate such international court of panel to just to see the that if the how Modi is and that is why I've read few reports that India, in those reports, it is clearly mentioned that under Modi, India is heading to another genocide. So if this genocide is a track record or a trend of Modi regime, then international community has to take Gujarat genocide as a case study to see that how they can prevent any such action in future, or should they would they wait for another genocide of marginalized communities in India, because the Hindutva architects, the Indian strategic culture, it believes that in that India, or I would call it Hindustan, only belongs to Hindu and no other religion, especially Islam and Christianity, they have any right to stay and flourish or just to survive in this region, because these regions were imported to South Asia. They are not the indigenous religion. And the dichotomy is that on one side, when they talk about the rights of indigenous religion, they are violating the rights of indigenous people of occupied territory of Jammu and Kashmir. So when we talk about judiciary, I'm sorry, we cannot uh, justify Modi's action on the democratic values, unfortunately, anymore, because they don't exist in India. And that is why India, in the VDEM democracy index, India is on 108th number. India is among VDEM ranking, in ranked India as the country among the worst countries performing on democracy and have the highest probabilities to slide into a typical autocratic regime. So this is what India, which the India which we are talking about. So definitely we cannot talk about that how Indian institutions can help reversing or preventing what is being written on the wall under Modi regime, unfortunately.
Mr. Ashfaque, as Dr. Asma has just alluded to the fact that India has been ranked to 108th in the list of liberal democracies in the annual report released in early March by Sweden's Widem Institute. And now this particular thing has also been raised by Rahul Gandhi in his statement that he says that the BJP wants to gain power by being democratically elected and then to sabotage the same democratic electoral systems. Now, when it comes to the understanding and the responsibility of the international community, I mean, are they only interested in making trade deals with India, despite knowing so much alarms have been raised by the international human rights organizations and similar sort of comments coming from within India by the opposition parties also?
I think the international system, as we all know, is not something fair or just. We have been seeing that it's actually states look at their own interest. The US-based media, for example, many a times does not report any human rights violations in some of the countries, but at other times, or for the countries like Iran or China, the smallest thing gets reported and blown out of proportion. So that's not something ethical, or what we can say is that a fair thing. So on Indian side also, they have their interests, and the entire West is being led by the US. So the US, Modi is known since 2002 for all his involvement in the Gujarat riots, and now he is known from 2014 in the government as he has been suppressing the freedom of speech, blacking out the media, whatever he has done with the minorities. They could be Christians, Muslims, etc. But they have included India in the two quads. They are giving them all the military hardware. They are doing the business deals. They are supporting them, India, to rise against China. So how do we see that it's very unlikely that the West would condemn India or would bring Modi to trial? That doesn't seem possible. Whatever is being happening on this BBC movie or something.
Mr. Ashfaque, there seems to be a confusion. Ali, we saw that the US Commission on International Religious Freedom also criticized its own department, State Department, of not including India in the list of the countries of particular concern.
So I suppose that could be a possibility, because they would just want to pressurize India to in some other states, like on the Russia-Ukraine issue or some other issue. These could be only pressurizing tactics. And
right, Dr. Abbasi, don't you think there should be, or there would be some sort of realization among the leaders of the BJP that with this slide of the ranking in terms of the norms of the democracy, I mean, if it has gone to 108th from last year's 100th position, I mean, doesn't it depict that India is going to, the democracy first of all is under threat, and if this particular trend continues, then India is going to implode because of high-handedness, especially which is meted out to the minorities over there in particular.
Unfortunately, this is the classical example of fascism and populism. The Modi is a classical populist leader of over time, and he used the sort of religious jargons and emotionally charge the people, or by using that religion, giving people a sort of emotional boost. But unfortunately, the democratic values are being suppressed in India. The opposition is being suppressed, rather that is marginalized to a great extent. And the media is being curbed. Even international media is being curbed by Modi government. That the BBC, they have faced a lot of high-handedness in the hands of the state institutions. Similarly, Amnesty International, that is working for human rights, that has also been suppressed. That has also been, meted with the high-handedness of the Modi government, the fascist Modi governments. Similarly, as Air Marshal Sahab said, that unfortunately the world is, more concerned about their financial and monetary interest and their strategic interest in the region. If the Modi was banned for 10 very years in America, what has happened that they are not talking about anything against Modi? If the Modi has not done something, why the US government banned Modi for 10 years? Because at that time it was in their interest. They are now seeing Modi or India as their strategic partner against China and in the region. But the more importantly, I think there should be some powerful voices in the secular India, quote unquote. There were some voices in past. They have been raising these slogans of secularism or the equality of the minorities. But unfortunately, this time we have not seen that much, powerful voices in India. And the more importantly, the Muslim world is also unfortunately having their petty financial interest with India. They are investing in India, having some sort of financial agreements with India. They are also not talking about the brutalities meted by the Muslims in India by and large, and more particularly in Kashmir, the way the Modi government treated the people of Kashmir, revoking the special status of Kashmir and genocide of the people in Kashmir, of the Muslims in Kashmir, kidnapping, for ransom, kidnapping the vices for the working for the rights of the people in Kashmir. This is the Modi's India, but unfortunately, Muslim, the community of the Muslim nations, that has also not played a very important role over
but
there.
the OIC has raised its voice continuously against whatever the brutalities are being committed by the Indians, especially Indian armed forces over there in IIOJK.
Unfortunately, we have not seen that much, which was expected. On the other hand, we have seen some good gestures of our young foreign minister, that he has been raising this issue on various platforms. But look, the Pakistani media, I would definitely say this is a very disappointing role. The most important issues for us in Pakistan is either Imran Khan has got his plaster removed or not, or either he has started his rally or not. But we are not giving the due importance to this very humanitarian issue, being a threat to the Muslim community living in India, and that is the largest number of the Muslims living in one country, and that is India, and their lives is in threat in the hands of Hindutva ideology of RSS and Modi government. Not only that, this was not voice being taken by the Pakistani people. We are not only talking about the brutalities of the Modi government, but these voices are coming from within the India, the very powerful people in the politics. As you mentioned, or we have been talking about Rahul Gandhi's very powerful voice, and BBC has reported that Rahul Gandhi chose Britain for the very reason that if he would talk such kind of things in India, the media would black out him, because the media is also influenced and impressed by the fascist and populist tendencies of the Hindutva policy of the Modi, and similarly the judiciary also there. We have quoted 3-4 examples that are very powerful, confessional statements from within the India, very powerful. I have Lieutenant General Zamir Shah and Amit Shah and the police official, as Air Marshal Sahab has quoted, and there are so many other voices. But unfortunately, the Indian media is not taking those voices. That's why the international ranking of the Indian democracy is declining with every passing day.
Right, Dr. Asma, now we expect the parliamentary elections to be held in India in 2024. So with all these things being exposed regarding the BJP's high-handedness, its discrimination against the minorities, stifling of free speech, and then harassment of the opposition parties, do we expect that opposition parties would be able to do something substantial against the BJP in the upcoming elections?
As one of my colleagues rightly pointed out, the term populism. Right now, majoritarianism in India is a popular election winning mantra. So this is how Modi has transformed India. So right now, I don't foresee that if opposition parties in collectively can do anything, because if you see the previous elections, the trend of Modi regime to attract the Hindu vote bank, that is quite intense and a success story for them. Usually their election report card consists of their anti-Muslim or anti-minority laws and the achievements, the way they have subjugated the minorities, whether they are ethnic or religious one. So right now I don't see Modi appears to be a popular Hindu leader who has introduced himself as a messiah for Indian population. If we see the economic indicators, see they have manipulated, because I still remember the Nobel economic prize winner economist wrote in an article that Indian democracy is on a tailspin. But still, we can see that with the help of statistics, Modi has created an image as if Indian economy is flourishing, which I believe is not, because in Modi's whole governance system is based on propaganda and sheer propaganda, whether it's counter COVID-19 policy or any other activities. So the gap and latest Adani incident also said also tell us a lot that how Indian economy is a bubble rather than being on solid ground. But here the Indian public don't vote on economic development, unfortunately. Right now the populism is in India votes on the that how Modi would take the Hindutva ideas further, because I remember that not only this year Rahul Gandhi talked about the India declining on democracy, but in 2022 when this VDEM issued the last report, their last report on democracy, and first time declared India as an electoral autocracy, even then Rahul Gandhi tweeted, has a Twitter, shared a tweet then in which he raised the alarm bells that India is declining on democracy index, and international community has to do something. And if we see right now in India, we can see there are different internal conflicts which are intensifying under Modi regime, such as the issue of the rights of Punjab, and the issue in Tamil Nadu, in Assam, in other areas, along with Kashmir. Definitely, Kashmir is there, and all those issues which are raising or intensifying. This is the result of, because when we see that much big state nation, which has one of the huge, like second most popular populated country of the world, if when we see that that country wants to run like a fascist regime where democratic rights of people are not preserved or answered, and diversity is not being appreciated, and minorities are subjugated, it is the logical result of all that system of governance is the eruption of new internal ethnic or religious conflicts and economic conflicts, definitely. So we can see.
We bring in Dr. Ashfaque also, Ms. Ashfaque also. Ms. Ashfaque, now where do you see India standing for the next 5 years if Modi is elected for the third term?
I think the suppression of the minorities will continue, and the worst hit would be the Muslims. And their policies, as the National Citizen Register, with that, already in Assam, about 2 million people have lost the right to vote. Similarly, many Muslims who will not be able to provide the paperwork will no more be citizens of India. In this way, actually, they are pressurizing the minorities, and this will continue to decline, and the minorities will continue to suffer. Same is true for the Jammu and Kashmir, with the new people coming in, the Hindus coming in there. They are trying to change the demography there.
Right, Dr. Abbasi, your quick take regarding this. If
Yes,
Modi is elected for the third term,
this is very right time. It's very alarming that 150 crore lives are at stake of this. That in long term, this extremism or this fascism, this populism would lead to the disastrous kind of fate of the people of this region. And I think the world community, particularly the Americans and even the Chinese and even the Muslim community, they should come forward and they should see the situation being headed in this region. This is not, India is having some hegemonic sort of designs in the region to subjugate the rest of the smaller countries. But this is not an ordinary kind of thing, because both the countries, Pakistan and India, are atomic powers, and life of 106 billion people are at stake, and the world should, there's a very serious vices. The serious people should come forward and to notice this situation being prevailing in this region.
Right, you put it very well and pertinently. Dr. Abid Abbasi, political analyst, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on Views on News tonight, and Air Marshal retired Ashfaque, Director, Center for Airspace and Security Studies. Thank you very much for your time also, for being with us on Views on News tonight. And on Skype, we were joined by Dr. Asma Shakir, Executive Director, Center of International Strategic Studies. Dr. Asma, thank you very much for your time also, for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.